Hi everybody. So today we're going to be talking about something called erythropoiesis. So what is erythropoiesis? Well, basically what erythropoiesis is it's how our body makes red blood cells. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. We need red blood cells because red blood cells are going to carry oxygen, right? So it's going to carry oxygen. And the reason we need oxygen is because oxygen is going to make energy, right? So what's going to happen is if we don't have enough red blood cells, we won't absorb enough oxygen when we breathe it, and then we won't have energy. So what the body will do in that case is it will go and perform erythropoiesis to make more red blood cells so we get more oxygen and more energy. So if that makes sense, so just to summarize real quick, if we decrease the number of red blood cells, we don't have enough oxygen or as much oxygen as we need, our energy levels go down. So therefore our body goes and makes more red blood cells so we can absorb more oxygen so we can have more energy. So let's take a look of basically why or how this occurs and how we get to the point of making red blood cells. So what I have over here is if we look at this, we are looking at the lungs here, okay? So this is going to be the left lung. This is going to be the right lung. And just a reminder, again, this is the left, this is the right. And the reason they're called that is because they're my left and right lungs, right? Just like this is my right arm and this is my left arm. In the center here, we have what we call the trachea, right? Or the windpipe. So what's going to happen is when someone takes a breath in, the oxygen's going to come down. It's going to go through the trachea. It's going to go through these structures here, which are called primary bronchi, then through secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi, and all that. Eventually, it's going to come down to this one cell thick sac, which we call an alveolus. Now remember, alveolus is singular. If I were to include all my alveoli, then we call it alveoli. Inside of here, we get the oxygen. Now, what oxygen is going to do is once it gets down to the alveolus, it's going to leave the alveolus and it's going to enter the bloodstream. So this right here, this is my capillary, right? And it's going to enter into a red blood cell. So let's go ahead and take a look real quick. And what I have drawn right here is a red blood cell. So this is my red blood cell here, right? Inside the red blood cells now, we have proteins, which we call hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is basically made up of 4 subunits, and I'm not going to go into the subunits, but basically they're kind of like structured, all twisted like this, okay? So this is going to be a hemoglobin that's right here. All right, so we got our hemoglobin right there. Inside the hemoglobin, we are going to have iron, right? We're going to have iron. So there's going to be iron right there, and here's going to be another iron atom, and then we're going to have another iron in there, and another iron in there. So for every hemoglobin, we are going to have 4 iron atoms, right? So really quick, if we look at this, the word heme means iron, and the word globin is a protein. And together, they form hemoglobin. Okay? So now, here's what's going to happen on this. When you breathe, like I said, well, the oxygen is going to enter into the bloodstream, and then it's going to go into the red blood cells, and it's going to bond onto these iron molecules. So this here, this purple, these O's, this stands for oxygen. So now I've got the oxygen inside the red blood cell. So for every red blood cell, you have about, depending on the source, between 260 to about 300 million hemoglobin in every red blood cell. So that means that every red blood cell can basically hold over 1 billion oxygen atoms, right? So I got my oxygen on there now. Now I can go throughout the bloodstream. This is an unstable bond. It can drop the oxygen off where it's needed so you can make energy. Let's talk now about how we make more of these red blood cells. So let's go over here real quick. And what you're looking at here is this is a nephron here. Okay, that's a bone. This is a nephron. This is inside the kidney. Okay, in the kidney, you have a tube that goes through here. This portion of the kidney is going to be called the proximal convoluted tubule. This is going to be called the loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule, and then a collecting duct. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these cells that are outside of this proximal convoluted tubule, or in this nephron, and we're going to blow it up, and it's going to look like this. Now, inside of here, there is going to be something that we call hypoxia inducible factor. Now, I'm not going to write this over and over, so we're going to call this HIF. Okay, HIF, hypoxia inducible factor. And this is going to be it right here. Now, this is a transcription factor, right? Here's my HIF. And what it does is when it's free floating in there, it can come over to, inside of here, we're also going to have your DNA. So it can come over to the DNA. Now, one section of this DNA is going to be the gene that's going to make a hormone, which we are going to call erythropoietin. Okay, so this is the gene to make erythropoietin. This will stimulate this gene to make erythropoietin. However, we don't want to be making erythropoietin all the time, so it actually has another protein attached to it, right? And when this is attached to it, this is inactive, right? But in order to attach to that, it's going to need oxygen. So when your oxygen levels are normal, this protein attaches to the HIF, and it keeps it from stimulating the DNA. When oxygen levels go down, this is going to break off of there. This is now free floating in there, and then it's going to come over to this gene, and it's going to cause it to basically go and make erythropoietin. Remember, it's going to make the messenger RNA, which is going to go to ribosome and make the protein, right? It's going to be over in the ribosome. So now this erythropoietin is going to leave, and we actually call this EPO. The EPO is going to go over to the bone marrow. Remember, the bone marrow is on the inside of the brain, right? I'm sorry, inside the bone. So it's on the inside of the bone. And inside the bone, we have cells that we call myeloid cells. Well, when this EPO comes and binds onto here, what it's going to do is it's going to cause this to start making red blood cells, okay? And it'll continue making red blood cells until you start to get enough oxygen, and then once you have enough oxygen, this will then bond onto this again, and it will stop the HIF from stimulating the DNA to make more erythropoietin, right? Now, sometimes what will happen if someone has kidney failure, or if they've had chemotherapy, or if they're taking certain medications due to HIV, they won't be making enough erythropoietin. So what they'll do is they'll be given something called the erythropoiesis stimulating agent, or also known as an ESA. An example of this is something called Retacrit. And what that will do is that will just take the place of this, and that would actually just go onto now, right onto this myeloid cell in here, and stimulate it to start making red blood cells. All right, so that's it for erythropoiesis. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and subscribe button, and we will catch you next time.